Hello, Preston Trail family. You may not know this, but this coming Sunday is Pentecost Sunday. The word Pentecost actually means 50th day, and it was the Greek way of referring to the Hebrew holiday of the Feast of Weeks. It's the 50th day after Passover. But Christians also celebrate Pentecost, and I believe that probably Pentecost is the most important Christian holiday that is celebrated the least. And let me tell you why. We often just segment Pentecost away from the cross and the resurrection and those experiences in the life of Jesus and especially the disciples. But really, it's important to keep all those things together. And here's why. Clearly, the disciples saw their Messiah, their friend, crucified. They grieved for 2.5 days while he was in the grave. On the third day, he arose again. And then he was with them for 40 days, and they were trying to process, what does this mean? He has a different kind of body. He's no longer going to be with us, but how do we respond going forward? And then 40 days after his resurrection, he ascends, and he leaves them with this message. He says, the Holy Spirit's going to come upon you and give you power, and you're going to be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth. I don't think at that moment they understood how important power would be to them. But as they began to process this calling to go and reach the world and to impact not only the people around them, but to the uttermost parts. And how are they going to do that? The Roman government had killed their Messiah, their friend. The entire Jewish establishment was against him. They had no power. They had no means. How in the world was this going to happen? And yet Jesus told them that when the Spirit comes, you will receive power. And then on day 50, after the resurrection, they were all gathered in one room together. And it sounded like a windstorm was coming from heaven, and tongues and flame came and landed on their heads. And the Holy Spirit was given to these believers. Now, when you read Jesus teaching in the latter part of the Gospel of John, and you read some of the things that the Apostle Paul would write later, we know that the Spirit is our comforter. The Spirit teaches us, helps us remember all that Jesus said and did. He's our advocate in the world. But I believe the most important thing that the Holy Spirit does is empower us to accomplish God's mission, his purpose in our lives. I really love the way Paul talks about this in Philippians chapter 2, verses 12 and 13. Here's what he says. He says, be mindful, work hard to prove the results of your salvation. And you can do that by remembering that God is at work in you. Well, how is God at work in us? He's at work in us through the power of his Spirit, and he is at work in us to give us the desire and the power to do what pleases God. And I do believe that that is exactly what empowered those first disciples to truly spread the gospel around the world, to the point that today we know the story of this good news. But we may be like those early disciples too. We may feel like it even now. We may feel powerless. Life just isn't going our way. We're struggling with our family and relationships. Our job may not be fulfilling us in the ways that we hope. We may truly feel like we are powerless to live the life that we've always wanted to live and the life that we feel God has called us to. Well, on this Pentecost Sunday, I want to encourage you to open your mind and heart again to the power of the Spirit to come inside of you and to once again give you the desire and the ability, the power to please God and to live your life exactly the way he intends you to. Thanks for listening. God bless you. And I hope you have a meaningful Pentecost Sunday.